Well, hello everyone. Welcome back to the Gold Monument 19 here, and this right here actually shows right here are some Dreamweaver work, and with the Dreamweaver work that you have right here is what I went ahead and arranged right here, like I have right here the files right here with these placements, and ones I created from illustration, and talk about for the Gold Monument, something that keeps me busy as well, and as for a designer professional, and but if anybody will warrant toward it, some of your Dreamweaver work that like if anybody really like to see it, compared to almost for that altogether 18 or so a sequel video activities talking about for illustration work. But you see right here is talk about for HTML, and this right here like they have not no just single page. I did not there's like a I know there's a template I can work with as well, but do you have right here is like any type of starters page, and I know if anybody were to be starting on a project though that a few things that are required, such as about update as well as anything else about your basic settings about Dreamweaver, and this right the view right here, and as well as anything that needs to be changed right here on the file settings, such as browse and as well as the print codes. And so just to be able to the site new site management. So there's other files that it's like other folders that this work could go in, just to be able to be placed and published live on an internet site. But just to kind of get some ideas here, and I know that maybe not every designer is maybe going to make it to the finals, and if anybody warns us to where that that you're going to be working hard on something and thinking as to where that all the puzzle pieces, if you want to call it, all the pieces of the puzzle, or if it's anything about the project placements that if you may count about maybe 17 of them altogether that I've used since Gold Monument 1. And this right here, that this actually right here is like it goes from far up out here, like for like this right here is like an extra long site type HTML. It's for the HTML document right here that talks about this. If like this was right here was like an internet site. So with most internet sites that if anybody knows, like you go to the URL link and then you see them, and then any information that you need to collect, especially if it's going to maybe be about the taxes though. But then if you're going to be creating a page and then taking a source of information settings that would need to be updated as well on there. But another thing also about the tools though, if anybody warned to where are you going to be getting into that at some point about the tools? If I want to maybe do like a separate project later on talking about the tools, and then as well as get a little bit more into coding. And I know I did a video talk about coding, but the way I put this together, it contains a lot of most of us can see right here from the split screen that there's a lot of we say information right here, plus with the pictures that from the previous for the Gold Monument, and this one right here talk about for why ask questions. So I decided to include that on there. Say if that was that right there is me right there using my Photoshop work, and all these other like drawings right here. This right here, of course, that I wanted to kind of talk about this as well. Ever since from the first one, the first Gold Monument activity is to where that the Statue of Liberty, as well as and then I know that there's other ones, Mount Rushmore and North Rica, that other states that I have talked about based on the Gold Monument for postal paid, and as well as for getting for looking for work, and then you say you talk about any type of awards or achievements or anything like that. But this right here I want to talk about also, because of the fact about that this right here would be an example right here of some of my freehand work. So I know that a lot of the work that I'm doing now involves like any type of freehand work. So this right here was like a little pencil, a pen sketch right here of the Statue of Liberty, and for it was done on paper. It was not using like any of the pen tools like on illustration program, but just to kind of convert it to like we say like a JPEG file, just to be able to import it into Dreamweaver. So whenever we're looking at this right here, and thinking necessarily to where that yeah, that that there's like a color version, which I know that I don't think not all the copies, of course, I have made it to the final right here, but you have right here's a little bit of color version right there, and I know I had another one that I had used from earlier. So anybody that may warrant toward yeah, some of the illustration work and Photoshop work that I have used from the previous videos that you'll want to know like if that if this was right here was maybe like a final design of a website. And this right here like shows right here's a license, and I know that I include that right there is to where that right down here, but you have right here is like for professional license. So the way and I know that and I know I talked before that like the desktop view. So this right here would be like an example right here if you were looking at the internet site from a desktop. But then if you were to select from a mobile device, it's like go from a I guess that's tablet. Okay, this is mobile device. So while I was looking at this, I was also thinking about as to where yeah, this looks almost like if you would be reading it from the paper, maybe from the Tribune, and if for like anything about black and white, black and white readings, and it's talking about say for these are examples of the gold monument project, for the best achievement as like the student has. So this right here talks about from the previous and talk about from the gold monument ever since gold monument 2 and as well as for 10 and 12 and 14. Showing other examples of my creative work about the states and as well as emails and also about online websites. And with these sites though that if I would be put in mind to get a known about represent my birthday though and thinking necessarily to her. So it's like based on any type of articles that we will be reading online, and then you have right here this right here would be example right here of like if it's going to be anything about any type of article that we may read in the paper. And I know since the back in the early 80s that I know that my parents would have had some of these examples, quite a few of the examples, maybe even in a magazine, they would talk about different articles if it's about anything about maybe science fiction or anything nonfiction, maybe space exploration or anything like that, that will be displayed on an article. But this right here talks about for jobs. And I can remember whenever I was job searching back those couple years ago, I would probably say I was about at least 15 and a half, maybe 13, 14, something like that, 14 and a half. And I looking in the paper and a lot of the jobs that they advertised, that if I can remember right, that some of them that may have said you had to be at least 18 years of age and your work experience, just to be able to work at a job or some sort. But if I can remember right, that quite a few of them that said something about talked about experience and as well as a driver's license and some of those jobs that they say is like that you need to have some source of a license or maybe any type of agreement or some sort just to be able to be hired onto a job. So now we think about this right here is to where like for the Gold Monument 19 and they have right here's information right here from my Behance right here from Meta MCG and Capital MCG is right here. It's like for these are examples of the Gold Monument project. So if we were to scroll down right here and right here for the, that keeps a designer busy for the next 50 years to understand about the principle about being a designer. The gold monument is like a way of saying, thanks for the hard work of the student, the years completed for the future's best of honors, and then for the day the person when they are born, and for everything the student has to achieve, the knowledge that they have as a student to put their goals forward, and then that will help the business as well. So that have right there is like a little note, and then for companies to understand more of our do's and best, look forward to the best, for a better future. So these right here would be examples right here of like like the picture, like from the Gold Monument Project, from 1 to 15, and then like of course I did not include the resume on this right here. If anybody probably say that, yeah, I can maybe not maybe like a next the the other project that if I want to go ahead and maybe work one that talks about maybe the coding, or if anything, maybe the tools only or something like that. But this right here talks like for higher education, why ask questions for security. So I know if we're going to be looking at an internet site, and if it's going to be something like this, and if anybody would say that they want to look at maybe at the mobile, what it looks like from a mobile device, at this project, whenever it's created and then it's going to be going up live using like any type of mobile device. And if anybody warns us toward it, yeah, that it looks pretty neat, just by looking at it on a phone, and then you're like thinking about it necessarily to where, hey, that with anything about the mobile device, and then just studying about a little bit about how it works as well, and then as well as for anything about is toward it with about the works, such as to where if it's going to be anything that is related to. Yeah, anything that's going to be related to about online sites, that when we go to these online sites, even on a mobile device, and sometimes we weren't, or anything about maybe internet security or so, especially on the mobile browsers, that for how we set those. And I know that with my phone, that like if anybody wanted to, where maybe by next year, whenever we do renew our license for anything about antivirus protection, or if it's internet security, anything about the firewalls, that one or two, where how does it work on a mobile device, and anything like that, maybe like a tablet, but anyway, but any type of devices that we may have, even at home, and you're like warrant toward it, yeah, but the purpose by Dreamweaver, though, is like for anybody that may warrant to where, yeah, nearly 40% or so of your time is going to be spent, what you call on it, which is like understanding a little bit about for what you do as a designer. But this freehand work, and I know that as far as I can remember, that this is another example right here, but there's another. If I can remember right, that yeah, this is like a a sketch that I drew by pen right here, and I think this came out later on in time, and not really my original. Whenever I was putting this together, I was trying to think about it toward trying to find everything and trying to see about, well, okay, which one that looked the best, but this right here would be example right here of some of my freehand work. So if I were to be drawing this and doing some work on Photoshop right here and think of what looks best, and think it's like, that looks good, on the internet site. And if anybody warns us to where that, yeah, that anything about, yeah, right here at the gold monument right here, me whenever I was young, from the Liberty of 1776, and you have right here is with that like the license right here, and I know that'll be down further down, but have for the digital design professional license for 5 years, and this right here would be some of my Photoshop work right here. And while I was working this, it was like, yeah, there was some parts, some portions of the picture that were not there. So while I was working the paint tool and other settings, that I just kind of wanted to make this look a little bit like, as to where that if it was like anything about it, trying to make it look a little bit more reasonable for anybody that may want to, or that if anything that you want to change, any updates or edits that you want to do with the picture especially, and any pictures that were taken from back in maybe the early 1980s or maybe the 1990s, and you're just trying to, if they're all scratched up or dirty, and then or so got a lot of scratch marks on the picture, then I like say that'll be about time to where, like, yeah, I have a designer that would have the access to have license access to the program, just to be able to correct which they can perform as well, and any source of business as well. But they have right here, this right here will be example right here, be right here, and like for the digital designer, professional, for the license, and then this right here would be example right here of like, I'm sure most of us have seen this right here, and then you have right here, the gold monument right here, with add on a Photoshop. This right here would be a pen sketch right here, and then for any the work that I was using Photoshop work. So that's just a thing that with one step or maybe two steps, as to where you draw something on paper, and then by the time you scan it, or anything about working with the photos and anything that can go further with using the programs. And for any type of internet site, using Dreamweaver here, and you're like Warren toward that, yeah, that for how it's presented, and thinking it to where if anybody say that about the gold monument, that people that like the work, and they want to kind of find out a little bit more information about it, and anything anything creative that you can think about as well. But one of the main reasons why I wanted to do this was talk about represent my birthday, and so that was around July, and so between like October and December or so, that I guess if I say, especially around Christmas time, and thinking necessarily toward it, that something keeps me busy as well. But on the other hand, for any source of information about taxes, you have right here. This right here would be example right here, if like a Skype ID. If most of us here have seen you from 13 or so, that I from the Gold Monument 13 is that there's like a little bit close up right here is me right here at the phone, and so be like on Skype right there, and then you have right here some other sketches right here, and you have right here is with me on the birthday cake. So these right here, and you have right here the pre-born careers, to say for the past history. So, and then little brother careers, and then it's like you have right here is online. So I know that a few of the sources of work that I was working with on Illustrator, that I decided to work right here on Dreamweaver. So that's just a thing about it, to where with like nowadays, that with anything that we would have access to at home, and if anybody say that yeah, that they did not have a real clear view of this house right here, so let's just say that anybody say, well, I know, I'm like, they have these programs, expensive programs, I'm sure. And then if you're going to have license to it, knowing about what all that you're able to do at home compared to maybe what you could be doing if you have an office. And then another thing I also want to mention too is to where I'm going to switch right here to the mobile view right here. But this right here, that while I was looking at this right here, is like with the price tags right here, like talk about for the calculations of anything about for the cash dollar earnings above minimum wage for like licensed professional. That this right here, while I was looking at this, it looks a little bit almost like it's anything about maybe real estate. I'm like, if there was like a website that I was putting together that was based on real estate, but really about anything about, or say known as about that being a graduate student, and you have right here is like the language, especially the language for any type of documents that they'd be working on, and then anything that I want to share, especially for higher education. This right here will be safe for the improvements of the brain power. So there's a few things that I know that I know I explained since Gold Monument 15 of talking about for anything about writings, but then this right here would just kind of talk a little bit more about a website. So I also want to mention a little bit about this right here. So at this right here, go ahead and switch to the desktop view right here. But you have right here is this right here, yeah, for the desktop view right here, Little Brother Careers right there, and then goes to see here, goes to United States Treasury. This picture right here was like, but if this was right here was example, I know I mentioned that from Gold Monument 14 is I talk about for about $4. And if you like Warren Tour about how much it is, like about $4, say about $4 a month or so, and or I think if I can remember what I mentioned before, from Gold Monument 13 is to where this was right here was example of it. This right here will be a picture of me right here in front of a $4 bill. And I know if I say, yeah, it is for your lucky number or for your favorite number or so, but from the time I was born, and it's like for anything that I do, especially anything artistic. So this was right here is me right here, and then some of my Photoshop work right here. if anybody wants to, where any source of money or some sort, any source of design of money or some sort, anything just to kind of keep in memory about as to where how well that you solved your math, especially. I say, yeah, you look at that picture and it looks almost like I'm saying fun, but then it's like Warren to where that, yeah, am I maybe calling out a number or some sort, but you have right there is like, yeah, for the brain, for higher education as well as for emails. So I know if anybody will warrant where there was like if I were to be putting together an internet site that shows right here as to where the source of language that I know is like anything about Microsoft Word skills, or putting together a resume or any type of job opportunities like that. And I know if anybody warrants to where what about the code still, like the coding, but I just want to kind of put together right here is like some work right here of a project you're using Dreamweaver, and say for Matthew Sean McGuire here for the language. So if anybody wanted to where anything about like a website that basically describes about your years of education as well, and, little brother careers, and as well as you have it there is for the preborn right here for preborn careers, from say for the prequel right there, talk about the gold monument, and then you have right here is me right here in front of the birthday cake. So you have a variety of, you have about, I would say, I counted about maybe 13 or so, 13 different, let's say, examples of, say, for like a gold monument, and anybody may warrant toward yeah, that about the gold monument, so but still that it basically means toward that yeah, that it's if I want to call it like kind of like a nickname for what I'm talking about is toward something to where you give it like a certain name, a typical name, and I call it like since from Gold Monument 1 and 2 is that some a test that just helps improve your source of education, and the work just keeps on going. And really, that if anybody warrants where there's any type of a stopping point, if anything, maybe just to take a break from it or so. But this was right here was an example right here of a website, and that's just the thing though, is to where whenever people that may find my information on a website, kind of like what I create on Dreamweaver here, and then they're looking at these file documents right here, and thinking anything that maybe I could add is anything about maybe other links as well, and this right here would be like an example right here of like an HTML document. Before anything else that's added on is that this right here, I guess if you want to call it like maybe the original before the actual work, the final work is in, say, in production as well when it goes to the finals. So this right here contains a bit of information. This right here would be like, if you want to call it it's a document, what I call a document tour that contains information about the files. And if we can think about this right here about any type of files, though, is that with these files, that the files that would represent is toward it, for anything about, from illustration and as well as my Photoshop work and the other programs, you're using files that were created and saved in other locations on the operating system just to be able to use them for a certain website and for the internet site. So if anybody warns us to where, yeah, that you had these different pieces or so that you want to go ahead and use just for like a project, just to be able to build onto a website, and you're like warranted, or really that if anybody really dreams about that, or how many complications that they have with that, especially. So the thing about coding part is to where that this right here, I guess if you want to call it like it looks just a little bit like Sloppy Joe, because because it looks like that the pictures were just put there, that they're not really organized into like a gallery. And I know other examples I have put together, kind of like maybe a little bit like this, is to where they have labels on them, and then they're organized into a gallery, or that they explain a little bit more about the meanings of some source and kind of illustration. So That's just the thing about with me though is like my study my experience about using Dreamweaver is toward just gradually learning and understanding about the program a little bit at a time. But it seems like at the time it's like to where that you only have about maybe an hour, or if anything, just spend an hour. Just trying to help other people understand a little bit about what you do, and maybe if they want any more information about this, and they can visit your website or so. But on your hand, with like this was right here was example right here of a website, and for a digital designer, and the purpose about for the Gold Monument, and if this was right here was an example of like anything about maybe like a job ad, and so that's one thing I did want to mention too, right here, is toward it that while I had this set is like toward it that it'll be like see the header one for strong bold, so that way we can see it right here, because I'm like I'm sure I can maybe figure out that maybe add like a little color to it as well. Your background is like color as well as for image source that you're on for the HTML, but I'm like, yeah. Altogether, I can tell anybody here that something like this would probably take me about at least a couple of hours, maybe about 3 days just to put it all together. And if anybody warrants us to where, when do we think that you'll be able to see something like that? But I'm like, well, probably later on in the fall, I'll see what I can do, probably around November or December or so, about getting a website together that talks a little bit about the Gold Monument and other projects that I have worked using Illustrator, and just to kind of get some ideas right here. If anybody say that, yeah, I have not done a whole lot of Dreamweaver work. A lot of it has been Photoshop and Illustrator and InDesign work. So if anybody wanted to, where yeah, the next one that you want to go and do, maybe talk about the PDF file, but PDF, viewing the documents on PDF, and so if anybody warrants this tour, yeah, this right here is to where that yeah, you're used to getting your homework maybe by paper document or so, and then that's all I say is to where that they have these emails, and I know with a lot of these emails that I could probably tell anybody here that whenever I first got my first email, that was not even for business reasons. It was yeah, that unless if I say that maybe it was, maybe I didn't know it, but still that for what I mainly used it for was for like you keeping in touch with the friends and family, and as well as anything about if we want to call it maybe ads. I'm like anything about updates or ads, but nowadays with the emails that I have nowadays, that you're like wanting to where okay about you don't have a whole purpose about is to where that if anybody that needed to contact you for any reason at all about maybe job offers of some sort, but if anybody warrants us toward that, a lot of that resume information, which I did not include on here, I just mainly want to talk about right here for like the websites. And if anybody warrants to, why would we even have a website? Just to show everybody here about a little bit about my work right here for the Gold Monument. The main purpose about the Gold Monument is to where that yeah, for my birthday, it came around the time of the portfolios, my portfolios work. So more likely by next year, maybe by the year 2018, that you'll be able to see a little bit more progress. And I keep thinking those to where that anything that I know that I did not mention too much about. I was thinking about if I still want to go ahead and do some more work related to tools. I'm like doing some more, showing some more examples of different tools that I know of, experience with, especially on Photoshop. So being a designer, I can tell anybody here that being a designer, it's something that's more likely going to keep you busy for at least 5 hours, maybe 8 hours per day. I'm like my future job, it's possible, even if it's part-time, it's possible I may be busy for maybe the entire evening working on anything about maybe projects that I'm going to be working on, and if it's going to be anything about Gold Monument, anything about maybe mathematics and finances, and I know that if anybody warns us to or that anything about what you call for finances, that try to think about this as to where that which calls like for anything related to like lessons, if you want to say lesson learned, as well as anything about job tests. So it's like if you're like warrant or that maybe that you may mainly work on a project like this if it pays a lot of money. And here like weren't to her, if only if it pays a lot of money. But then how often will we may say is to her that maybe if it's going to change about maybe how children think or so, or about maybe about how other people will get to learn about me especially. So this right here is really what I want to talk about right here. I talk about the gold monument. So if anybody warns us to her that, yeah, the gold monument right here, that right there is me whenever I was young. And I would probably say that, yeah, that the gold monument, for 1985. So that's just the thing about, for U.S. history right there. And then have right here is a baby picture right there. And I did not include all the placements either, but just want to mainly talk about like a website, to where up to at least 25, accounts, if I want to call them accounts, but up to 25 different accounts that I have, and sometimes you're keeping track of signing in and signing out. You're trying to keep track of the information about that. So that's just the thing about it, is to where if anybody warns us to where you're going to have a license, you're going to likely have a type of license to where you have access to, say, these programs and materials. But then sometimes people may warn to where that, yeah, that you haven't been you haven't been signed on here lately or so. What's going on? Well, I'm trying to get signed back in, and it's giving me problems or so, and you're just trying to figure that out. So that's just the thing about for being a designer, though, is to where you're like wearing to where if you're trying to look for something very quick, there may be some times where you'll find something very quick, to use, but then sometimes you're like, oh no, it's not going to be, it's not going to take only 20 minutes or so. We're talking about the 3 days. So that's just the thing about being a designer, huh? I'm like for the gold monument, that you're like Warren, to where if there's a point of time to where you feel like you're bored out of your mind, you got nothing to do, or maybe nothing fun to do, anything like that, kids will be kids. They'll say something like they got nothing to do, so they decide to do something else. But on the other hand, with anything about if anybody say about having a certain license though, but just to be able to have access, to do like the professional work, just to learn the basic skill about the professional work, especially if we're going to be talking about the, for a gold monument, for the definition for the gold monument, and if anybody warns us to her that, yeah, anything about the tools and maybe about the codings especially, and if anybody warns us to her, well, are you going to be using this picture? And I would probably say that I'm going to see what I can do a little bit more, because for hypertype markup language, and for my years of study about especially the language or so, and it seems like day by day, week per week, that it seems like if I have anything updated that maybe I want to share with everybody here about anything about this right here, be me right here, like this right here will be the digital designing professional license. And then as well as a few other projects, like you go mine right there, and it's like the sketches, and then this right here will be me right here, for like if it's going to be what's called the golden birthday as well. But that's just a thing about for being for understanding about a little bit more what we do, is that just to talk a little bit more about the coding. And I could probably say that if I could maybe add real quick, see what I can do here. I'm like, for the licensed professional, that I could maybe add accounts. Just go ahead and just say accounts. So if anybody wants just to where, yeah, that if you want to go ahead and add that, there, and and add accounts, and then it would show up. See here, yeah, see accounts. See, yep, accounts right there. So if anybody warns us to her that about almost anything that you're going to be doing online, that you're going to say, it's going to be likely ask, please subscribe or please create an account today. So that's just the thing about us, Tora, that what's one thing that maybe that we would not ask for whenever it comes to what you call finding jobs? Sometimes that you say that before you can get hired on any job, that you really have to have an account, or if anything that maybe you may have to subscribe or sign up or anything like that, you have a resume ready. So if anybody warns us, Tora, that yeah, a lot of stuff that maybe if you're lucky to have access to it at home. And nowadays, I would say about 80% of most of us, Americans or so, that they're likely weren't, or if it's going to be anybody else, worldwide, if it's going to be maybe people from China or Israel or Japan, it's like, or if it's going to be parts of Mexico or any countries like that, or if it's Canada or any other state of Nebraska or so, that anybody here that would have access to a lot of stuff at home, and you're like worrying toward it. You have to create an account before that. You're like, yeah, the knowing about if you apply for a job, especially. So that's just the thing about is toward it. For what we may want toward about is toward that having an account is plus having a license and then anything about a website. For any type of website, though, is like for what we want to create, especially, and you're like warrantor that for any type of a website that is created, and that may not be maybe that it may be a little bit different compared to whenever you apply for a job. So anything that we may provide on a website that whenever you go apply for a job or talk to somebody there maybe at the career center or so, and like for Little Brother Careers and anything about careers, though, is that if you're going to be talking to anybody and they ask questions, and sometimes it's like, well, it's on my website. If you've gone to my Facebook page, I'm like, well, so some of that information that they may not have access to, and so we weren't, or what's that all about? Whenever sometimes they even know if we do have other social media sites, and we may think this to where that they are what you call available for anybody that wants to know about it, that they are visible to anybody. But with this, even if you had like a Facebook page here for those that find you and find your work especially, they may ask you more likely just to confirm that same information, just to be able to recall you for any information that they may need to have based on their database, anything on their systems, especially they need to they need to verify. It's like any source of verification. So if anybody say that they may already have that information, but they ask you to please verify your email, please verify your contact information for security purposes. So that's just a typical thing about it, is to where that whenever you're going to be hired onto any job, and you're like wanting to where the questions that they may ask, it's like, well, I thought you already knew that. I thought you already had that information, but still, that if you like wanting to where that the information based on your work and that any information that you may put together maybe on a resume, and sometimes at a later on time it may be hard to find too. It may be hard to find some of this information. So maybe what's the best results, especially whenever it comes to job resumes. So that's just something to think about. For anybody warrants as to where that for like any type of internet site that you work on and put it together, and here like warrantor that there's a way for how people that go to your website and then they're able to send you an email like, hey, I seen your site or so, I found you on LinkedIn, YouTube or anywhere like that, and they're like warrantor that they it's like and then which I know that there's a way like any type of URL links of how to do that as well. Is that when you think about URL links, that a way to provide a website onto that any project that you're working on, like a website that you're putting together using Dreamweaver, and just a way that the document is need HTML document, and it needs to be set up just to be able to range to where anybody who's visiting the website would be able to go directly to that site. And if anything, I think it's image source, something like that for file, and then as well as for about say that if it's what you call the closing tabs as well. So this right here, a lot of these right here will be like file documents right here. Though it's like use like the locations for where that they're saying that. So this right here, yeah, for it's like desktop week 6. So these right here would display like the folders right here, and there's like another way of I think it was CSS. So this right here, these right here will be like the default font. So that's just those are different settings right there, especially for align left. So If you're like warrantor, yeah, it may take it may take maybe a whole day or so just to make maybe just a few changes. Anything that's more likely that's recommended on the website that you're like warrantor, just think of one thing that's more likely that's going to be much more simpler. But seems like at the time that's not really it's not going to be what you call starting by scratch, maybe by a template, but based on what the information that those who want to hire anybody that the based on information that they need to collect, then it's possible that they ask you to her that any updates that need to go on a website and on any type of account, and you're like warrantor. Then then that may mean is to her that I may have to open up the project again and then go back and edit, and if I really need to do that or not. So that's just the thing that some people that may say that, well, if you want to buy an hour more of my time, then you're going to have to come up with a deposit. Anybody that may say that, if that's the case, and then one small change, if anybody wanted to, or one small change on a resume or maybe on a website, one small change that maybe somebody asked to see, and you're like saying is to her, well, if you want an hour or two more of my time, you're going to have to pay me for it or some sort. But on the other hand, we may have what you call our opinions about that as to where people want to know information about this or that. People who may find your work and then they're like, say, hey, the Gold Monument Fellow, hey, we're wondering to where how come this information was not provided on your website, and you're like, say, the Gold Monument Fellow, oh yeah, the fellow, the young fellow right there, and you're like wondering to where the Gold Monument, Gold Monument 19. I want to say that about the accounts as well as the license that you have. Like, how come that was not provided, or maybe there's like any type of typo errors or anything like that, and you're like, Warrantor, yeah, we have a suggestion. Could you please add this to your website? That this right here talks about our company and our business or so, and we would like to ask you to add that to our website. And this right here, that's right here, oh, that's you right there. Whenever you were young, we ask if you can also include this right here. This is supposed to be like a business card that please add this or that to your site. And you're like, Warrantor, then that more likely means is to that I would have to go back and change something. And so that's just the thing about it, is to where if anybody warns us to where that for anything that what you call text effect, and I'm sure, like with anybody, that they would get really aggravated if they had to go back, that they had to work backwards and go back and change something small. So that's why that there are questions about that as to where what's the best results about that as to where that for anything before that a project is in final finish, is that anything that go ahead and review the information again and making sure that the files are saved and all accurate, all updated, especially. So if we're like Warrantor, that you have right here is I know that file aligns so that yeah, on the program right here, but there's a which I know for sure that there's a way to display that. But anyway, I'm also thinking about my time too. But anyway. But talk about for the Gold Monument, 19 here. This was right here was example right here of a website. So if anybody say, yeah, between the header and footer as well as the body and as well as the text. So this was an example right here of an account. And anybody warrant toward it, yeah, something a little bit like almost like if you would read it in the newspaper. And some of the work that I'm more likely I'll explain a little bit later about is to that about highlighted. And I know, like if anybody says this to her, that anything about for what I do, and anybody that may remember a little bit about what you talked about for based on anything that you were studying from the beginning, and want to know about really about what words that are basically highlighted. And I would maybe think is toward you have right here is toward this right here. Go ahead and click right here and see for H1, and then if I want to add like that right there, I guess yeah, that you'll add a class ID. But anyway, this right here basically for busy for the next 50 years or so to understand about the principle about being a designer. The Gold Monument, a way of saying thanks for the hard work for a student that come the years completed. But if I were, this right here, that looks almost like if you would be reading about the article, maybe in an ad in a paper or some sort, reading any type of ad in a paper, and you scroll down and you see some of these paintings right here and want to know who's the artist, who's the designer, and you're like, Warrantor, okay, we did not see no email address on here. We did not see no any source of way of how to contact you for any reason. So anybody say that whenever they see this, and if anybody warns us toward that they see this right here, and you're like, Warrantor, that it's supposed to be like maybe an internet site to where it is what you call basically about what's required just for to catch other people's attention about what you do compared to, oh, it was just for practice. And this is what you call, it's like just for practice, but if it comes to where it comes to the final, the final the final project is to where a project to where that people are looking at it and they want to know some more information about it. And then I might say, well, please visit me on LinkedIn as well as on Behance. So that's just the thing is to where that projects like these, that if I do decide to save them, just to update them more or just maybe do any further projects. So if anybody warns us to where that this right here is what you call as a practice project. So it's not, it's for anything about the Go monument, but I would probably say is that yeah, that it will be really surprising as to where anything about anything done for practice and people that that they get the information that they need for anything that you're able to accomplish as well. But for like the Go Monument 19 and talks about right here for any projects that I'm able to manage as well, and looking at this, for an amount of projects that that were worked, for talk about the Gold Monument. But whenever I first started on this, of course, it was around my birthday, of course. But now since elections are coming up, and as well as for tax season next year, and I'll say that yeah, for like anybody say that those who went back to school and you're like Warrant or anything about anything that they want to learn more about me as well, maybe towards the holidays. But other than that, talk about say Matthew 25, Matthew 31, it's like talk about for the Gold Monument right here. And this right here for the HTML document right here. So it's like, yeah, thanks for watching. Matthew 25, and have a great day.